want to give you the ideal thing to say to each one of these people. The pity person wants to hear, I can't believe all the stuff that you've been through and you've got to this point. Because I don't think many people would have. Pity wants recognition of suffering. And finally, we have the strength and power person. And this isn't always Biff from Back to the Future. So it can be somebody who's a leader in a company, but they want control. So significance is, do I make a difference? Strength and power is, do I have control over other people? These are everybody from like the leader who kind of forces his way into the top to the guy with the ridiculous jacked up pickup truck that has like the plastic testicles hanging off of the back of it.
And once you understand what categorization someone fits into, how would you show up in a way that's effective in communicating with them? Say, for example, if I'm talking to a significance person, do I just, and I'm trying to close a deal with them or something, do I pander to their significance? Is that?
Yeah. So there's a few other types that we teach intelligence people to identify. There's the 6 ways we make decisions, and then 6 ways that we have values, which is our end goal that we want. But I want to speak in a way that says this decision is going to increase your level of significance. And I want to compliment them on their level of significance right before I ask them for something. So I could say, Stephen, this is a great podcast. You've got millions of subscribers, and it's obvious you make a difference in so many people's lives. And you are a significance person. So that would be effective for you, because I know that you want to make the biggest difference that you can. Mm-hmm. And I want to speak in a way that A, speaks to their needs and lets them know that I am a source for that. Mm-hmm. But B, that making this decision, whatever we're talking about, selling a car, whatever, is going to increase your ability to get that same need from other people. So I think if we did this together, I think the number one thing that's going to happen right away is you're going to be able to impact twice as many people. And you're going to leave a much deeper footprint on the world. So I'm giving you, we're going to double your subscribers or your listeners, but not just that. You're going to make a bigger impact and legacy on the world. So every time I'm thinking about needs, always think in terms of neurotransmitters. So if I can compliment someone on their need, that's what we need from other people. So I'm giving them like 500 million neurotransmitters being released when they hear this. So it's not just that we are kind of suffering and insecure and all these things that we talked about a minute ago. We're also drug addicts, everybody. We just need to identify the drug that person's addicted to.
Hmm. I was thinking about the pen. I was going to ask you if I'm an intelligence person and you had to sell me the pen.
Yeah.
How would you go about that?
I think there's a lot of people in the world out there, and I think most people just do what other people do. And I'm sure you would agree, there's so many idiots out there that just get with the basic thing. I'm going to do this basic thing, and they don't really go outside the box very often. And every once in a while, you meet somebody who knows higher quality things. And you meet somebody who is able to see things at a level different than other people. And I would talk about that intelligence while subconsciously I'm associating all of that with this. This is different. It's unique. It's a pencil. But it's not like other pencils. It's not the basic run-of-the-mill thing. So I want to present that in a way, and I'm going to start with a negative comment. And this is one of the most effective persuasion strategies, I'm going to negatively associate something I don't want you to have. So let's say we're starting our podcast, and I'm afraid Stephen's not going to connect with me. And I know that you're significance driven. As we started out, imagine if I said something at the very beginning of this podcast and I said, Stephen, thanks for having me, man. And there's so many people out there. And anytime I say something negative in a conversation, I never want to gesture in between you and me. I always want to gesture away. So we're talking about other people. Mm-hmm. There's so many people out there who just don't really give back to the world. And they don't really have an interest in helping other people. And it's like every time you meet one of those people, you sit down with them, it's like all of them have the same thing in common. They can't just stop and connect when they sit down with somebody. So I'm demonizing a trait using your needs that I don't want you to have, like the inability to connect.
Okay, interesting. And you're consciously pointing off to it's others, not
right. Until I said the word connect, and then I gestured between you and me, back and forth between both of us. And that word stop is a very powerful word in the English language. So when I said, it's like all of them have the same quality to them. They can't just stop and fully connect with somebody else. That's a very subtle thing, but I've used your neurotransmitters, I've used your needs, and I've got you to agree. You nodded your head. Agree that those people don't really connect well with other people. So that's how powerful that stuff can be. And you can use the same thing in reverse. And I could say a positive thing. And I could say, Stephen, what's fascinating to me is I've gone around the world. I've met several entrepreneurs. I've met people who are on TV. And it's like you think that they are just dismissive offhand before you meet them. And it's incredible when you meet these people. It's like all of them have this ability to just tune everything out and just completely connect with somebody. And that would have the same effect.
And what's going on there? People, we want to be that person because it's positive. We want to live up to that expectation set.
Right. So what I've done is I've got you to say, as Chris Voss would put it, that's right.
Okay.
But I've got you to say that about who you are as a person.
Okay.
So now I'm not changing your ideas. I'm changing your identity.
Changing my identity or?
Yeah, because you've made an agreement about who you are. You've nodded your head.
Okay. And
if I wanted to take that further, I would make an admission first and I'd say, you know what? I had social anxiety growing up and I'm curious, what is it that, have you always been able to just connect with everybody you talk to, or is this something that you had to work on?
Oh, is that a question?
Yeah.
Okay, but I know it's not a question.
Yeah.
Yeah,
but
it's a good question.
The moment that you ask, that you start to answer that question,
you've
made an agreement about who you are as a person. So if I wanted somebody to be less closed off, I might say, I've spent my whole life just worried about what other people think. And I was 25 before I got to a point where I was able to open up. Have you always been this open with people, or did you have to work on that? So just any answer, and no one's going to give you an answer of like, actually, I'm just closed off. I'm very closed-minded. And that's maybe a 0.1% of people. So small agreements, and none of these are designed for people to take word for word. I guess they can. But it's about the idea of getting someone to comment on their own identity, who they are as a person.
Is there anything else as it relates to communication that's especially important? It's funny that so many people are interested in the communication part more so than the listening part.
They want the flight checklist.
Yeah. It's the thing with Julian Treasure, who did the TED Talk on how to be a great speaker. He told me he also did a TED Talk on how to be a great listener. No one listened. He said everyone wanted to. His one on speaking has got like 35 million views, but the one on listening, just no one's interested in that. But I'm guessing listening plays a pretty critical role to being a great speaker.
Yeah, and listening means I can identify who you are and what the needs that are driving you, and the social needs, and the way that you make decisions.
Is that part of the observation part?
Yes, absolutely. Just listening to that means that now I have the right words to use for the communication and the right understanding of what motivates you as a person. So if I'm a therapist, that makes me a better therapist. If I'm a hostage negotiator, that makes me a better hostage negotiator. And if I'm a suicide hotline operator, that makes me way better at my job because I'm understanding exactly who I'm talking to. And my goal is to talk someone into doing something that they normally would not do.
You talk about this elicitation.
Yeah.
What is elicitation? It's a CIA technique, right?
It is. It was originally came up with by this guy named John Nolan, and his book is no longer for sale. You have to get it on eBay. It's hard to find. But the book is called Confidential.
Why isn't it no longer for sale?
I think that he just kind of pulled it off the shelf. I'm not sure.
Okay.
So elicitation is about using statements instead of questions. And I'll give you an example. Let's say you and I walk into Whole Foods, we're in New York, so it's probably a block away somewhere. And we walk in there, and there's, let's say there's a young lady stocking produce. And you get in there and I say, all right, Stephen, your goal is to go figure out how much she makes in 60 seconds, and you're not allowed to ask any questions or be awkward. And that's tough, right? It sounds really tough. So if you went over to her, and this is a generalization just to get you to understand what elicitation is, and said, hey, I'm trying to find the baby carrots. And she walks you over there, but while you're walking, you say, I just read this article online that says all Whole Foods employees just got bumped up to $26 an hour. That's fantastic. And she turns around and goes, what? No, I make 17. So now she doesn't feel like she's been pressed or questioned about how much she makes. She's correcting you. Mm-hmm. Or if you, let's say you got into an Uber tonight and you said, I just read this article that Uber drivers were one of the top most highly satisfied employees in the country. You're going to get a correction. And you're going to be like, what? Where did you read that? So triggering a need to correct the record is one of the easiest ways to use elicitation, but it's only one. Another one is just making a statement afterwards and saying, I bet you had some interesting experiences doing that, or I can imagine that was challenging. Statements are always going to be better than asking pointed questions because a person feels like they're volunteering information. The third layer of that is disbelief. So let's say I wanted to ask if you just got back from vacation and I didn't want to use any questions. Let's say we meet up for dinner or something, and I said, Steven, you look like you just got back from a vacation. That's a statement. And you're like, no, actually, I've been doing this, 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 and this. So now you've given me more than if I just asked if you were on vacation. Mm-hmm. And I said, wow, that had to be interesting. I can't imagine that. There's got to be a lot of stuff going on there. And you start talking more and more and more. And then, like, that sounds great. There was no challenges to that entire trip. I love when everything is 100% flawless. And you're like, no, well, actually, and then you start going into that, and I'm like, no way. And then now we have disbelief that comes in, and I haven't asked a single question yet. So that's one thing that I challenge everybody that I train to get really good at is that elicitation piece. So how many layers can I get into a person or a conversation just using these statements? And that's why I wrote, there's a whole chapter about it in this book here. But that elicitation is powerful because we're not being asked questions. So our brain doesn't set off little security alarms. And this is how Soviet spies would get information from a 19-year-old U.S. Navy sailor in the early days of the Cold War. Ship would pull into Thailand, or a submarine would pull into Thailand or Singapore. Then a Russian would go up and these sailors would be drinking at the bar. Russian would sit there. He's got a Aloha shirt on or something, and strike up a conversation. They say, I know that the German submarines could outrun you because their propellers are 22 and all of your submarine propellers are 18 feet in diameter. And the sailor, slightly drunk, turns around and says, no, they're not. And starts giving up all this information just to correct the record. And that's all they did back then, was just correcting the record. I'm triggering this need to offer some kind of correction to information that's inaccurate. And even with business intelligence, let's say that a company's moving and they have to get business intelligence. Somebody at that company will get approached at a bar and somebody will say, yeah, I heard you guys are moving between March and April. And they'll get corrected and they'll say, no, it's actually February, but we're not really supposed to talk about it. It's like, there's no way you're going to move in February. It's too cold and the interest rates are up too high. There's no possible way that the CEO would ever do that. It's like, yeah. And then you're going to get more information out because of the disbelief. So that was correcting the record. A second technique called bracketing, where I'm giving you a series like between March and May, or between 39 and 59. And the third is the disbelief that starts getting this information out of people. So if you want to think about, like, how do I start a conversation or continue one using elicitation, think of the words so, and then do a recap. So you've been doing this for 3 years, or so this is not the best job, but it's getting things done for you. Or I bet. So I bet that was interesting. I bet there were still some challenges there. Or I bet you overcame a whole lot to get to this point. So or I bet is the best way to do that.
And so if I say, I bet you hate that coffee.
Yeah.
That's a statement, but you're going to endeavor to correct the record either way.
Yeah.
And if you do hate the coffee, you'll say, yeah, like even you saying, yes, I do kind of hate it is offering up information.
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting.
And you could even go on with that. Be like, I bet you hate that coffee. And somebody says, yeah, well, I do kind of hate it. Like, I can imagine you're the kind of person who likes coffee a very specific way. Well, yeah, here's how I like it a lot. And say, that's extremely interesting. No creamer, no sugar. And I'm just recapping.
So why is that better than me just going, how do you prefer your coffee?
Well, if we're just talking about coffee, it's not sensitive information. So I wouldn't say that was better.
It's for sensitive information.
Yeah.
When you're trying to not get their guard up.
Yeah. So the rule of thumb is the more sensitive the information is that you need, the less questions you need to be asking.
And is that what, I mean, that does correlate to kind of like how I've, the information that the spies I've interviewed have given me. Like Andrew Bustamante and Mike Baker, they've both said that much of the game was like hearing someone out and just letting them talk and talk and talk and talk.
Yeah.
But not being too pushy.
Yeah. And that's the best way to not be pushy is to use the elicitation stuff.
Perception, context, permission. The PCP model is a way of understanding how to get someone to do something from joining a cult to buying an item.
Yeah. So the PCP model looks like it's 3 steps, but it's, I want you to view it as kind of dominoes. So one step starts the progress of coming down the other. And once that comes down, the next domino starts going down. Mm-hmm. So if I change your perception about something, then I change the context that you're viewing that in, which changes the way that you feel permission to do it. So I'll give you an example. Would you want a weird example or a boring one? Let's go with weird.
Okay.
So let's go with an attorney in Washington State was charged with assault of a woman using hypnosis. And he would have her get naked in his office, which is something she would not normally do. And the attorney was studying this hypnosis and stuff like that. He wasn't, as far as I know, he was not even good. But he would hypnotize her and then tell her, at the end of the day, you come home from work and this is just like that time. I want you to picture yourself. It's the end of the day. You're coming home from work. You drop your keys in the bowl. You make your way to the bathroom. You turn on a hot shower. And now you're here getting ready to get into that shower. So he's changed her perception of where she is. He changed the context of neither one of you or me right now would like get naked on a podcast, but both of us are going to later tonight when we go to shower. So, but because that's a different context. So he modified the context, which gave her permission to remove clothing or do something that we otherwise wouldn't do in a social setting. One of the ways I studied this, and it was fascinating, is cult recruiters. And I spent a long time, 6 weeks, working with these cult recruiters. And I was back and forth between cult recruiters and door-to-door salespeople. And these are hard-hitting people, man. It's a hard job, door-to-door sales. But they talk people into doing things they probably wouldn't otherwise have done. Mm-hmm. Installing a $95,000 solar system on their roof, or buying a vacuum cleaner, or joining a cult that's probably harmful. But all of them started off the conversation by changing the perception of what's going on. So instead of me saying, hey, let me talk to you about this thing that's from a needy perspective, they come out with a survey. And they say it's an anonymous survey, which automatically makes the people more open. Mm-hmm. So it's an anonymous survey. I've changed permission. So now the context has shifted slightly. And if I could change your perception again, would you rather be in a group of people who feel like family or people who are related to you? So I start asking all these little questions about how would you rather live your life in a way that's like just kind of nudging you down into this cult mindset of like, do you want to be around people that enjoy your company? Like those kind of questions. So more perception changes. Now the context shifts to where I've just made 25 agreements about who I am as a human being. So now my context is way off, which shifts my permission. It's like, I have permission to do this because that's the kind of person I've just agreed to be. And that's who I've said that I am. I have to do this because that's cognitive dissonance, like crazy. And one thing I teach about any persuasion, whether you're doing a psyop on an entire country, or you're just manipulating one person, or doing therapy on one person, your main weapon as a person who is persuasive or influential is cognitive dissonance.
Which is?
I'm getting you to be uncomfortable because the way that I've got you to see the world doesn't match up with what you're doing. So the easiest thing for you to change is what you're doing. Instead of changing your mind about something or calling yourself dumb, I just get you to do something different. And that's weaponized cognitive dissonance. And we're seeing a lot of that with the extreme left, extreme right politics on both of those extremes. Once I get a person to make even one or two or three statements about their identity, I have drastically altered how they're going to behave in the future. Robert Cialdini, who wrote Influence and Persuasion, a wonderful human being, wrote about this, where a few weeks before they go ask somebody to put a giant ugly sign in their yard that says drive safe, huge ugly sign. 2 weeks before that, they go by door to door and say, do you support safe driving? Yes or no? Who's going to say no? It's like 91% said, yeah, I support safe driving. They said, good. Will you put this tiny sticker in your front window? Tiny little sticker. And just to let us know that you're supporting safe driving. That's all we ask you to do. 2 weeks later, they come back to the neighborhood. Like 89% of people are sticking these signs in their yard. The other neighborhood they did the test on didn't have this little survey, do you support safe driving first? And it was like 6% stuck the sign in their yard. So making one agreement about who I am and then taking action on it. So if I can get you to take action on something, not just between you and me, now I got you to put a sticker on your window. I got you to do something that alters the way other people see you. So if I can get you to make something that I've got you to believe public, I can get you to make a Twitter post, I can get you to make a Facebook post, now I've captured identity. So most persuasion and influence training in the world is about capturing ideas. Identity is where you truly get to change behavior, because I'm getting you to agree that you are a certain type of person before I want you to do anything.
Interesting. It explains a lot about politics, in fact. You know, what we see go on in the election cycles, and also just how a political party, political group can slowly drift together to a position that objectively you go, bloody hell, that's crazy.
Yeah.
You know, because they kind of slowly, they say, I'm this party, I signed up to this particular political party. And then slowly, just with like creep of beliefs, you end up over 10 years, all of you believing and thinking something is okay.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
Just because you made an agreement.
I guess in part that explains some of the wars as well. Like there's an element here which can explain things like Nazi Germany.
Yeah.
And how a civilization can go from being relatively normal to doing really horrific, barbaric things to people.
Yeah. And if you just going back to the Milgram experiment, right away I got you to say, do you fully volunteer to participate in this? Would you accept the role of teacher? Would you sit down in this chair? Would you shock him with this low voltage? Mm-hmm. I've got you to agree that I'm the kind of person that's willing to shock someone for an experiment within the first 2 minutes. Mm-hmm. And they don't talk about that. They kind of tend to say the whole experiment's about authority. But I don't think it's all authority. I think a lot of it is novelty. And they don't talk about that ever in these recaps of the study. But if you volunteer for that experiment, you're driving on a campus you've probably not been on, going into a building you've never been to, meeting a guy in a lab coat that you've never met, and another guy you've never met, in a room that you've never met, sat in front of a machine you've never seen, reading a quiz that you've never read in your entire life. All of these things, brand new. The number one thing that generates focus in the mammalian brain, and this is dog, you name it, is novelty. So our ancestors, they're walking past a bush every day of their life. And one day, sun's about to set and a stick snaps behind that bush. That's novelty. That's an unexpected piece of information.
New information, or is it unexpected?
Yeah.
What's your definition of novelty here?
Novelty is my brain is expecting certain things to happen. I'm going to walk past this bush, just like I've done before. I have kind of a script for running things, and something happens that breaks that script of what I am predicting about the world. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Any kind of novelty generates focus. So the 4 things that we can manipulate inside of a human brain spells out the word fate. So the 4 ways to manipulate or influence a mammal, and this is human, dog, you name it, is through focus, authority, tribe, and emotion. Those are the 4 things that a dog can feel. If you're looking at a dog training video, you're watching, let's say you're binge watching 3 seasons of Dog Whisperer with Cesar Millan, you're seeing him redirect focus, establish authority, show contact with the tribe, and praise the dog when the dog's doing well. Focus, authority, tribe, and emotion. Mm-hmm. That's how we train animals. It's also how an infomercial gets you to buy something. They grab your focus. They show you, here's a million people who've already bought it so far. And they all have these 5-star reviews. Everybody in your neighborhood's doing it, or all these people across the United States are doing it. They're getting success. And all of their friends love them because of that success. Now we get emotion. And they show it visually. They don't just say it. They're showing these visual images to show the mammal brain the focus, authority, tribe, and emotion. It spells fate.
I was thinking about a lot of like fizzy drink ads in the sunshine in the summer, and you see, you hear the sound like as they like break it open. There's people there. I guess that's the tribe having a great time. And I was just struggling with the authority part in that context of those ads you see for like a fizzy drink brand.
I think the authority would be the on-screen presence or brand recognition.
Okay. Or it could be a celebrity or something.
Yeah. And this is coming from a tribal leader. As if our ancestors didn't listen to a tribal leader, you don't live very long.
In your work, you talk about how to win an argument. And when I say win an argument, I don't really mean an argument. I mean more like, me and my girlfriend are having a conversation.
Yeah.
And I want to get to a good resolution. What are the things I should definitely not do?
Calling out little points that any kind of incorrect information, we wait until the end. We save it.
Okay.
So if I'm in an argument with someone and they're calling me out for doing something I clearly didn't do, I'll wait. I want to wait.
Why?
Because they get diffused. Now that we want them to get that out first. But right away, as soon as possible, in any argument like this, I want to establish, do we have a similar common ground? What common ground do we share? And do we want a similar outcome? And I might even ask that question, be like, really quick, do we both want the same thing from this discussion? I would never call it an argument. So the moment that we redirect on, this is the outcome I want, instead of I need to win an argument, because when we're in a fight, we tend to think I intellectually need to conquer this conversation and I need to be right. And if I can be right, that means I was right. Not winning an argument doesn't mean you were right before or right after. But it's like, what is the ideal outcome for both of us? And I would stop in a business negotiation, whatever. What's ideal for both of us? We both want this same thing. And the ideal outcome for you is this. The ideal outcome for me is this. And I think there's some middle ground here. Mm-hmm. And it would be the same thing in a relationship. If anything started spinning out of control, the first thing I'm going to think is, I'm going to hear what's not being said. So if my wife was saying, you don't even need to call me. You don't call me anyway when you're on these business trips. I never get phone calls. Do you think she is worried that her phone isn't ringing, or she's worried that she's not being appreciated and not feeling loved? So men especially will tend to say, well, let's open these facts really quick. Pull your phone out. I'm going to show you some missed calls right now. It's not about the calls. I need to hear what's underneath the statements that someone is saying. You need to hear between the lines. just like a behavior profiler. So what's the emotion that's starting here? Is it anger? Is it loneliness? Is it feeling unappreciated? I need to understand what the emotion is behind what someone's saying and address that, and never address exactly what people are saying to try to win an argument. I just posted a video on YouTube 3 days ago it was called the narcissist off switch. And it was how to disarm any narcissist. And there were these very specific methods, but the biggest method of all was to always think about what they are using to get out of you. So if I'm in an argument, is someone using fear, obligation, or guilt? And that acronym spells FOG. So am I going to get in trouble, or can I recognize when somebody is using fear, obligation, and guilt? And if someone is doing any of those things, I want to call it out in a non-confrontational way. So let's say you give me some line about, like, if you don't do this, I'm going to have to work 19 hours next week. So it's never about the hours, and it's guilt, right? Mm-hmm. I could say, Stephen, maybe you didn't mean to, but it sounded like you wanted me to feel guilty about me working next week. And I know that you're a good person. I don't think you meant it that way. So I will absolutely call out any fear, obligation, or guilt, always. But I'll call it out in a way that says, maybe you didn't mean this, but it sounded like this is what you were saying right here. And I always want to use that word where it's non-confrontational, and I want to give them an out. So in interrogation training, we always call this the golden bridge. In the art of war, they say, give your opponent a golden bridge on which they can retreat. Mm-hmm. So they can retreat across this golden bridge.
Don't trap them in a corner.
Yeah. So we give them an out that's beautiful. So maybe you didn't mean this. And I always want to think about, going back to that, what is the hidden feeling or fear that's behind what they're saying? They're scared of something. They're scared of losing a deal. They're scared of losing money. They're scared of looking a certain way. They're scared of what the people in the room are going to think. So where is the hidden fear in someone's argument? Anytime you're in an argument, there's a level of concealed fear. And just 30, 40 seconds, you can find that. And a lot of people teach this as a tactic, but just stopping and looking at a person after they do that in an argument is so incredibly powerful.
Just stopping and looking at them.
Yeah. So like, say you made that statement to me about, I'm going to have to work 19 hours next week. The moment that I stop, it lessens the power of that statement, because I'm not stopping as a tactic. I'm choosing to stop because I want to process what you were saying. And that helps people to do that, because it feels less awkward, as if I'm doing a tactic, I'm doing that thing, but I'm just pausing because I'm going to actually reflect on what you just said. And I'm going to use that time for just a minute. I might look away. I might, as soon as you're done talking, I might say, and I might just take a moment and say, Stephen, maybe I heard this wrong, and go right into that. So that long pause is so effective in conversation, especially when it's meaningful and it's not a tactic.
What is the most important thing we haven't talked about that we should have, especially as it relates to what most people ask you about and they're most interested in?
Well, what is one thing that no one's ever asked you on a podcast?
What is one thing no one's ever asked me?
Yeah.
People don't really ask me stuff.
Well, who are you and what is your mission?
Oh, you're doing something on me.
No, I'm not doing something unless you were doing something to me. I would love to know. And why don't you answer that, and I'll break down the hidden statements that you're going to reveal about your personality.
Okay. Who am I? I'm a podcaster. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm an investor. I'm a boyfriend. And what's my mission? It's to pursue my potential and to follow my curiosity and to see what happens.
All right.
Yeah.
So that's a great answer. But you went deeply into who you are as a person. So the first thing you did is look up and to your right.
Yeah.
Then you looked up and to your left, then up into the center. So that, when your eyes are moving in multiple directions, is called a transderivational search. So I'm looking in different file cabinets that are inside my head.
Yeah.
And then you talked about some of the labels that you wore.
Yeah.
And podcaster was first, but you mentioned boyfriend. So I know what's important to you. So like the podcast, you don't say I'm a TV star, but most people would identify you as a TV star, but it wasn't important to you.
Yeah, it's not important to me.
Right.
Yeah.
So you could hear what's important to people.
Interesting.
And then the mission was not about other people. It was about like, how can I make myself better? And you may be doing that to enrich other people's lives, but you didn't say, I have a podcast so I can benefit 10 million. Are you about to hit 10 million?
Yeah, it's interesting because my brain, like, it was right there to say that. And then I thought, it's just not the nature of the truth. Like, the truth is, I started this in my bedroom, and I always think about the fact that when I did it for 3 years, no one was listening. So my mission when I was doing it was genuinely because I really loved it.
Yeah.
It wasn't like, I'm going to change the world. And it's so tempting sometimes to like add that on, like, I want to change the world. And I just don't believe that's why most people start things and continue when no one's listening.
Yeah.
I think it's usually something more selfish. Does that make sense?
Yeah. You started something and you were passionate about the thing itself.
I enjoyed the thing. Yeah.
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 I love that. That was elicitation.
Oh, okay. That what you just did then.
Well, 3. I think I did 3 layers.
Okay.
But it's very, very genuine. And a lot of people get to the subscriber thing. I think I'll hit 1 million in a week or 2, which is a huge milestone for me. I never thought I would have 1 million, but it was never important.
On your main channel?
On the behavior panel. It's me
That's
and
incredible. 3
other behavior profilers.
Ah, yes. That's incredible.
Yeah, it's amazing. And
elicitation. That was elicitation.
Good job. So we just record Zooms, don't edit them at all.
I've seen it. I know. I was just trying to elicit.
It's so sloppy.
Yeah. So you were doing like a read of me. I said podcaster, I said entrepreneur, I said investor. And then I said, I do it to like, I think I said,
so your goals.
Curiosity. And then what was the other one? It was about my potential.
Yeah.
That's what I think about a lot. Like pushing my potential and follow my curiosity.
Yeah.
I see what happens.
So potential, curiosity, what would I see there? So I'm a podcaster. I did this for passion. I want to fulfill my potential. I'm not seeing acceptance. I'm not seeing that you need approval from me to do anything. So it's about your personal level of significance. Like, do I make a difference? But not to other people. But you still want people to acknowledge that you are reaching your potential. You are doing what you say you're going to do. You're relying on your girlfriend. So we're talking about a little bit of a group, but all of what you're saying is about significance. So when I say like you make a tremendous difference in people's lives and you're really enriching other people, you're doing exactly what you're born to do. It hits harder than if I said, lots of people appreciate you and you're in so many great social circles and you're like the center of attention in room. Yeah. See that little
grimace.
Yeah. But other people who are like the more approval group focused people, when I say like, I can tell like you're the center of all your groups of friends and everybody comes to you for advice. You seem like one of those people, which is an elicitation statement by itself as well.